There's not somebody right now who is winning by hiding. I think everybody even listening has a limitation that's self-imposing that has been instilled in them from the way that they were brought up. And for me, it was because no one in my family had ever made that kind of money. Now they're limited because they haven't surrounded themselves with people that have done more than them. And it's my job to put them in those scenarios where they can see it and say, oh my gosh, I can change this habit, this habit, this habit in order to break through to that next level.
I think the earlier you figure that out, then the happier you'll be, because I think I struggled internally for years.
It is embedded in us as individuals, there's limitations, and I think a lot of that comes from how we were brought up. I had a team, we closed $1 billion, and I don't care who you are, that's a lot of money.
Billion with a B, y'all. B, yeah.
As a fellow kind of college dropout, I do not think formal education is the answer for everyone. If you could boil down your success that whoever listening could take away with them today, what would you say those kind of key ingredients are for you based on your experience?
Like, my initial thought is,
on today's episode of Not Nice Clever, we are pleased to introduce you to Chris Medellin. We dive into talking through all the ups and downs that he has seen working in the mortgage industry, to grappling with imposter syndrome at every new level of growth, as well as how he is leveraging personal branding and coaching other loan officers to do the same in order to truly amplify and break through in their industry. All right. Well, Chris, I am so excited. I know Candace is too, to have you here today. It feels like this is a full circle moment because I was realizing it's been just over a year since we first met. And I know you've known Candace a little bit longer, at the Forward event last summer in July. And then we were there again this summer. And it's just been wild to see your journey. I know you and I worked together on setting the foundations of your branding, getting into your story, which we are going to dive fully in today. So before we get into the nitty gritty of all of those things, we always love to start with the hard hitting questions. We want to know, you do a lot for your community, your team. What's one thing right now that you just can't shut up about? We want to know and tell the people.
Well, first off, guys, thank you for doing this, because every Friday I'm doing my own podcast, and today I get to this is kind of like a break. I get to just tell my story with you guys. So it's fun. And by the way, thank you guys both for having me on. I'm super honored. You guys have a dope ass podcast. So I think I told you both this, but it's like I recommended this to my daughter because I just think you guys are doing something amazing and something to aspire to be for someone who's coming up. And so thank you for sharing what you guys do. And, I appreciate you guys asking me to be on. So I'll answer your question. So what can I not shut up about? So I think we have to take a moment in time right now to identify that this is probably one of the hardest times in the industry, in the real estate industry, in the mortgage industry. Rates are at the highest that they've ever been. And so if we could time capsule this moment and remember where we were, because, if we listen to this a year from now, this is not going to be the place we're in. But I do think right now, more than ever, I cannot shut up about this to loan officers, that they have the biggest opportunity in front of them to connect with people by building their brand, by becoming an individual that people get an opportunity to know digitally before they actually get to know them, face to face and in person. And so I'm really trying to help loan officers find their passion for creativity in building their brand online. And so I can't shut up about it, because I believe, and I watch this, I study the numbers and I look at the market. Loan officers who are marketing themselves, loan officers and realtors who are out building their brands, who are marketing themselves, who are searchable online, are the ones that are winning right now. There's not somebody right now who is winning by hiding. So I can't shut up about that right now, because I think everybody needs to be doing this. And honestly, they got to be connecting with people like you two, because you guys are a proponent on how to do that. And you're teaching people and educating them why that's important. So that's why we've all been connected.
I love that you just said you do not win by hiding. I think that is so true, not just in today's market, this moment in time, but just in general, right? we are social human beings. We're designed to connect with one another. And I love that you're putting the creativity and fun and play back into it too, because I think that makes it a little bit more approachable, and it also sparks new ideas. It's innovation. It's everything this industry needs right now. So I love that you're leading that charge, Chris.
Yeah, check this out. I had a guy who he's been with me for about 7 years now, 8 years actually, and he used to laugh at me because I've been doing content for about 5 years, maybe a little longer, but not at the level that I've been doing. But he used to laugh at me like, "Dude, there's no way." And now he's doing it. He has like a brand. He's having fun with it, and he said, like, Chris, I'm able to exercise the side of my brain from a creativity perspective that I've never been able to do it. So it's really engaged me about building my brand at a time where I was looking at retiring from mortgage, that now I'm actually having fun again because I'm able to get creative and meet new people through this platform. And I think that's the power of branding and not hiding.
Absolutely. And I know, one thing that is really important to you, it came up in our work together, and we really defined that your voice is your power and you do have a place at the table. And I love that you are working to have other loan officers empower themselves and put themselves out there. Like, that part of your mission and your brand is just extremely inspiring from an outsider looking in that's not in your industry. And I know that's something you're really passionate about too.
One thing that you mentioned, Chris, is that you want people to like digitally put themselves out there. And one of my favorite quotes right now, I'm going to say that over again, Lily, sorry. One of my favorite quotes right now is Rory Vaden's quote when he talks about personal branding. He says it is the digitization of your reputation. And I think that's so powerful. Yep, I think it's so powerful because people already understand the concept of having a reputation, right? Your parents taught you about making sure you have a good reputation and how much that means. And so if you already have that understanding of what that is, and you already have a reputation in real life with the community that already knows you, likes you, and trusts you, the only thing that personal branding does is takes that reputation to the online space, and it helps you to ensure that what people experience in real life is also what they experience when they look you up online, right? And it's really that simple, but I think people make it so much more complicated than that.
I totally agree. I mean, there's so much overthinking that's happening right now with people who are trying to jump into the space. It's, is my background cool? Do I have the right equipment? Do I have a big enough camera? And the truth of the matter is that everyone has the best camera in their pocket right now. Or it's in their hand, right? They have the best audio, they have everything. They just have to get comfortable with doing it. And so I'll tell you a quick story. I'm a retail lender, right? And so in the retail space, there's like two really big differences in mortgage, and there's the mortgage broker and the retail loan officer. And I won't go into all the details on it, but people have left retail to go broker, and there's like this mass amount of people leaving retail people to go into brokers. And I've made it my brand to really kind of demonstrate who I am as a leader in the mortgage space through my social media. So I'll send out notifications of people who did a really good job, or we're doing like masterminds. We're doing really cool stuff in the mortgage industry that people are looking at from other companies or brokerages saying, I'm not getting that. My boss isn't doing that. And so I had a guy reach out to me that's like, hey, I'm thinking about leaving the broker and going back to retail because I've been watching what you're developing and I want to be a part of something like that. And can you help me find that? And I think that that's the power of demonstration in what you're doing. Like, a lot of people don't realize that if I get an opportunity to see you and what you're doing behind the scenes and what it's like to live in your struggle or in your, in your authentic life, then little by little, it's registering me that you're just like me, or I'm just like you. And when it comes time to doing business, I'm calling you because I am now ready to transact. And I've gotten to know you, like you, and trust you. And I think that that's where that digitization comes into play.
So talk to us a little bit about how you define success as an entrepreneur today, and maybe how that's different than you defined it in the past. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, I think growing up, I had this yearning to figure out how to break out of a near poverty level of living, growing up, right? So, growing up, we didn't have, and my parents were very working class. My dad, was working at a tire shop. My mom was working in a printing factory. And so like my like mission in life was to figure out how to get money and how to live in a way that I didn't have to live the way we were living. And so like I did things like sold drugs, and that's something I'm not proud of at all. I've never said this, but I was like, there was a point where somebody got their hands on some weed, and then we figured out how to like measure it all out and then sold it. And here's the one thing about selling weed: one, you can make money really fast, but like I had people coming to my house at like all hours of the night. My mom's like, who are these people that are knocking on the door? These maniacs knocking on the door at 2 a.m. I'm like, oh yeah, don't worry about it. I mean, like the fact that she didn't know what was going on was crazy to me. But what I realized is that word of mouth was really big, right? So I was able to get the product out really fast, but I realized at that time that that's not necessarily the space that was good for me. And I figured out how to hack my way in to a commission paying job where I can talk, use my voice, and get really good at closing people. And at the time, I was selling cable in order to make connections and make money. And then before I knew it, I was a top performer. And I never went to college. I mean, I was like 5 years in high school. I like my senior year of high school because it was my fifth year there. You know how they go and write on your car with like shoe polish? Like my friends went and put 5-year plan man. So it was like really embarrassing that I had to go a full year, right? Because all the people we kind of picked on coming up, I'm like showing up to school again. So I was a bit of an F up, coming into it because I just didn't want to go to school. But what I realized was that I was really good in the workspace. And so by the time it came time to go to college, I was already making really good money selling cables. So I was like, you know what, I'm just going to stay doing this and I'll see what happens. And through that, I was able to, really work my way up the ladder in different companies and make, I mean, I made more money than I ever thought I was capable of making or that I deserved to make. And I think it all had to do, and now changing this will to answer your question is defining success is no longer about money to me. It transcended into I have to be the person that my kids look up to. I have to be the person that they feel a sense of safety with when it comes to, having wealth or having decisions in life that I didn't have. And hopefully through that, I teach them how to be hungry in life the way that I was. But when I took that and really transcended into realizing that I do deserve to make money, I do deserve what other people have, that I wasn't worth my worth wasn't dependent on my degree or not having a degree. It was really what I wanted to have. Success for me has been, am I happy? Am I waking up with purpose? And do the people around me trust me and know that I'm going to be there for them?
I love that so
I
much.
just want to pause. Yeah, so much of what you said just hit me in the heart. I know Candace too. We're
Me
just over
too.
here. We're like preach, Chris.
Yes, preach.
Truly, people over profits, purpose over profits. So much of that.
And for listeners right now, like what I wish that I felt sooner, and you kind of touched on this, is like you are born inherently worthy. Like you're worthy of all of your hopes and dreams and aspirations. And if you're around people right now who are telling you you are crazy or you don't deserve it because XYZ, because your path isn't their path or the thing that they think you should be doing, like you just need to let all of that go and know that you are fully worthy and capable and right now, full stop. Because I think that's a thing that holds us back. And I struggled with this, Chris, for many years after I left teaching. And I'll tell this story. I don't think we've talked about it before, but when I left teaching, I remember thinking, like, I think I was charging clients like, I don't know, $2,000 or something like that back in the day, right? And I would be like, oh my gosh, that's like more than 2 weeks of work because I didn't even make that in 2 weeks at as a teacher with a master's degree, right? I'd be like, oh, is that even fair? Is that right? Should I be charging this? Like, I feel terrible about this. But I was comparing my bank account to their bank account, right? I don't know what their bank account is like. Like, maybe $2,000 is nothing to them, right? But I just didn't have the mindset to understand that I could charge whatever I wanted or make as much money as I wanted, and I was worthy, right? Like, I felt like I was not qualified to charge that much for no reason other than I felt like it was a lot of money at that time. And now this is making me laugh, right? Like, wow, like that's insane. But I think that the earlier you understand that you get to decide how much money you want to make, like Ryan always talks about limitless livelihood. I think the earlier you figure that out, then the happier you'll be, because I think I struggled internally for years before I finally got comfortable with it. And I still struggle at every new level a little bit. At every new level that I get to, it's still kind of something that comes up for me.
I think we all have it. I mean, I think everybody even listening has a limitation that's self-imposing that has been instilled in them from the way that they were brought up. And for me, it was because no one in my family had ever made that kind of money. So the limit was I just need to make more than them, right? Or like, and then it was like, the habits that I watched my mom or my dad do, like how they behaved when they came home from work, or what their habits were, that being a blue collar person would have different from my habits, right? So it's all about these things that were instilled in me that maybe I shouldn't just get home and watch TV. Maybe I should be doing something different with my time. Maybe I should be connecting with people and having friends that are doing better than me in order to raise, my level of understanding of the world. And so I think that's always been a thing for me, is like figure out who my friends are and identify with, I'll tell you this, a lot of people that I talk to in mortgage that are Latino are usually at the top of their of success in their families. And they're limited because they haven't surrounded themselves with people that have done more than them. And it's my job to put them in those scenarios where they can see it and say, oh my gosh, I can change this habit, this habit, this habit in order to break through to that next level. And so I do believe it, and I have it myself. Like to this day, I still have to tell myself, why am I limiting myself? Why did I put a cap on my ability to grow even further than I am? So it's a constant struggle and I don't know if it's a male female thing, a Latino I don't know what that is, but it is embedded in us as individuals that there's limitations, and I think a lot of that comes from how we were brought up.
Yeah, I think it's a human thing. It just kind of depends on what you grew up around, right? The stories you grew up around. You mentioned your parents, and my parents, when I think about it, you have this kind of out of body experience as you grow up and elevate in your career. And I'm like, hang on. I was raised by a woman that was born in Tokyo, Japan, who was raised by a woman who lost her family after Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Like when you truly zoom out enough and you're like, wow, so that's their story. But I love what you do with your team members and having them understand that they can choose and decide what their story is going to be like and what that corresponding income level will look like. And even to be a role model for your kids too. Like this is a common theme. Literally every leader we have ever had on this podcast, including you, Chris, when we ask them about how they define success, they're like, yeah, it's not money. Yeah, it's not actually me. Like, yes, my face is out there. It's a personal brand. That's how I reach the people. But they define success by everybody else, by their children, their team members, their colleagues, their peers in network. Like we are all, peers for one another. It's an interesting, transcendent moment. I love that you used that word earlier too. I wanted to call that out. You know how much I love wordplay. So I think it's great. It's very inspiring. Yeah. So to that point, obviously there's so much that goes into success. And I love that you've been really open about your journey. As a fellow kind of college dropout, I withdrew from nursing school to go into the startup world. I do not think formal education is the answer for everyone. And you've definitely made your own way. I would say if you could boil down your success into, I don't know, let's just say 2 or 3 key ingredients that whoever listening, wherever they are in their income journey, their purpose journey, could take away with them today, what would you say those kind of key ingredients are for you based on your experience?
Well, so in order to answer that, I got to give a little bit of context to this because, if I did, like, my initial thought is just to say, like, personal branding is the big one, right? I think to understand it is I was fired about 10 years ago, and I just closed $1 billion in business. My team had, not me by myself, but I had a team. We closed $1 billion. And I don't care who you are. That's a lot of money.
Billion with a B,
Billion
y'all.
with a B.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, we did not even plan that. I love this. Okay, continue, Chris.
I was number 2 in the company behind, like, whoever was in New York, right? Because that's a whole different beast. And I'm sitting in Phoenix, and no one called me. Like, I got laid off, and no one called me. No one called me and said, let's help you. I had to reach out to recruiters online. LinkedIn had just, like, started. So I would like research recruiters or research people at other companies and connect with them. And I realized nobody knew who I was and nobody cared. And in fact, I remember sending my numbers to somebody and they didn't believe me. They thought I had fabricated my numbers, right? Because they're like, who's this clown with $1 billion in fundings? And so I realized that in order for me to never be in this situation again, I had to build I didn't call it a brand at the time, but I had to be known in the marketplace, in the industry, as somebody who was pushing out more content and showing behind the scenes of what it's like to be in this industry, more so than anybody in my position, right? That was like my initial goal. And it's evolved over time. But my point is that if something happened to me today, and I'm very superstitious to say this, but like if I were to get fired, I hung up with you guys, walked into the room, my boss calls me and fires me, I will have a line of people lined up to do business with me because they know who I am and they trust me. And so I think what people have to realize is that, having a brand in the marketplace is big. So that's like number one. I mean, my daughter's 22 and I'm telling her the same thing. Like, you have to be known in the marketplace because just knowing you before they get to know you, it puts you in front of the line with everybody, And so that's a really big thing. I think the second thing that I would say is, for me, it's showing up in a big way. If I go to an event, if I go to, a meeting, a coffee meeting, I'm engaged and I showed up. It's very, very seldom that I'm going to cancel anything. It's very seldom. Like, I mean, my whole philosophy has been, unless I'm in the hospital, there's really no reason I can't show up. Right. So that's always been my philosophy. Like, I have not called in sick in, I don't know, 20 years of being at work. Now I probably have gone homesick like midday because I couldn't, handle it, but I have always showed up. And I think that for me, that's just been instilled in what I do. And I think the last thing is having a business plan and a strategy, because the moment I sat down on a Saturday 15 years ago to write out my business plan that somebody taught me how to do, ever since then, I have been able to achieve my goals in a way that I never was before, because I just didn't have an outline on how to get to it. And so those 3 things to me are probably the most important factors that have helped me become successful in what I'm doing.
Music to our ears, Chris, because this is what we talk about all day long. I'm like, he gets it. I just makes me so happy. One thing
Well, it's why
that
we've all done business together. I mean, we've
Yeah,
done business
that's
together for
absolutely.
that reason. I mean, like, we all agree
There's a
with
method to the madness.
yes, and every time I get in a room with you guys, we all are in agreement, and it's like, why doesn't the rest of the world see this? And loan officers, like, I would be spending my last money right now to hire you guys to help me go build this out, because you guys are good at what you do. And I think it's really positioned me in a better way since knowing you. So, I'm a big, like, believer in what you guys are doing.
And it's so reciprocal, which is the incredible thing about it, right? Because yes, you've hired Kat and I to support you, and at the end of the day, you're in front of our audience. We get to be in front of your audience. Like, we're building a community that is supporting one another. And I think so many people are afraid, like, some people, Chris, would be like, I don't want people to know about Kat and Candace because, like, they helped me build my business, and I don't want the other lender's business to grow because of them, right? And it's so silly. I know it sounds dumb, but
I love that you just rolled your eyes, Chris. It's perfect. Yeah, because that's our reaction too.
No, because I've actually referred you guys. I've referred you guys to other lenders that I'm in competition with, that I'm friends with. I've said, if you're going to go out and build your brand, you need to go and hire this group of people that I know, because I don't think there's anybody better that can do it, and you guys are perfect for what we're trying to do. So yeah, the small-minded thought process of, and I think it's small-minded to think that there is not an abundance even in this market of business, is just a weak way of thinking. I mean, the more you can give, the more you can support, the more you can educate, then the business will come. It's just a way you gotta deal with life. But if you're thinking scarcity, that's a bad way, that's a bad place to be.
And if you're building a brand, you never have to be at the mercy of the market. Your brand is going to transcend that. And so being in rooms with people who don't have the mindset that they're at the mercy of the market is where you want to be. People who actually have built something and understand that this is the time, if any, and you said this at the beginning of the podcast, Chris, like, this is the time to be thinking about your brand, because maybe you're not in transactions as much as you were, in 2020 or whatever year that was. But now is the time to focus on your messaging, who you're talking to, your target audience, creating content, doing all of the things that position you as an expert, a thought leader in your space. Like, you kind of have no excuse right now, because you can't tell me that you're just like,
you don't have time.
You don't have time. Yeah. You have a little bit more time than you did before. So Chris, when it was bad, we've all been there. When it was bad, what, in those like seemingly hard parts, you got fired. I'm sure there's more things that I don't know about that have happened where you're like, this is not looking good, right? The market shifts, whatever. There's things that are impacting your business, and it feels like maybe you're not going to get through this. I'm sure you've had at least the fleeting thought that could be true. What was that like? How did you pull through? Give us a little bit of context there.
Well, so I've been fired more than once, right? So because I'm in the mortgage industry, and the first time was in 2008, and it was I was in a call center, and I had just been moved to Huntington Beach, right? So I'm living on the beach. It was dope. It was like I was on a permanent vacation, right? And then like the office I'm sitting in there was all mortgage in this whole little community. So you're watching people like walking out we're like on the 23rd floor. You're watching people walking out with their boxes, right? Like, oh, another one, like never going to happen to us. And then sure as shit, it happened to me. And so I went from that moment to like 8 months of being unemployed. 8 months, right? And there was a point that I remember the lowest point when I would go to Starbucks in the morning and get my coffee because I didn't have anything better to do. And I would be in line, like mad at the person in front of me that had like one of those badges. I'm like, how do you have a job and I don't have a job? Like I was like resentful that other people had jobs and I didn't, right? And so like, and I remember like I would fill out applications after application. I had a spreadsheet, and I think I stopped counting after like 230 jobs that I had posted for that I'd get no callbacks on. And I figured out a hack, by the way, on how to get job interviews. At least this worked back then. Is that you take the job app, like whatever the job description is, and then you work all those keywords into your resume. And so instead of like applying for like 100 jobs, I would apply for like 2, but I would have to go in and redo my resume like manually to match that. This is like a little bit of thinking, but then I started getting interviews really fast, and then it ended up working out. But But I think the lowest time, like when you talk about the lowest of lows, like I remember, like I'm not a religious individual whatsoever. I would like literally pray, which is a big deal for me to say. But I remember being on my knees praying, like, please, somebody hire me, and that's how scary it was. And I just like landed. I just did some group of guys that I had worked with before were starting their own brokerage and wanted me to come in as a partner, and I went in, and through that ended up getting out of the funk, rebuilding myself, and building some business, and getting back on my feet, and then eventually went in back into like bigger corporate situations and worked my way through. But it was probably the recession, like I was probably one of the first to get cut, and going 8 months was the hardest. The hardest. And here's the other thing. Like this is how I knew that I married the right person, is because she married me while I was unemployed. Like that's how you know, right? Like she believed in me so well that she was like, I'm gonna start a life with you while you have no money. But yeah, so that was my lowest of lows, and I got really fortunate to end up working my way through things. And that time though that I was unemployed, what I learned in that period was I was never gonna take my job and my duty to serve people for granted. I was like, I will work harder, I will work smarter, I will work faster than anyone if I get the opportunity again. And I've always lived by that moving forward. That was the one thing that I learned in that process, that I would never take my livelihood for granted.
I think it's so important to share stories like that because there are people who look at you now, Chris, and are like, well, easy for him to say, right? Look at him on stages, flying all over the country, connecting with a bunch of amazing people. We see it in your feed. Your podcast is killing it. Like, there's just so many great things, right? Your family life, like, looks beautiful and amazing and fun. Like, I want to go in your backyard and have you make something on that grill back there for me because
That's
I
so
see on your
Seriously.
Instagram stories, like, it seems cool. And I love that we are just peeling back the layers because it wasn't always this way, and probably there are still some days that are not feeling like that, right? And I think that's a huge part of success that people don't understand.
There's always a struggle. I mean, I don't care what somebody's feed says, right? Like, I mean, this right now, what we're in right now, and like I love that you guys are crushing it, because you're like you're taking so much advantage in teaching people how to be out there. But like it is the hardest. I don't care how good you are, you have felt this market. We are in the highest rate. No one is going to refinance their deal right now, right? Because everyone's sitting on a 3% or a 4% or a 2% rate. You don't want to mess with that, right? So LOs and people don't want to move because of that.
So, Chris, we've gone through a lot so far. We've gone through the highs, we've gone through the lows. One question that we love to ask, because you have accomplished so much in your career, and I know you have yet to accomplish so much more. Like, I feel like you are just getting started in so many ways, even though it has been a long journey for you thus far. So, you've got your podcast, Breakthrough, which I absolutely love the name of that. You've got your team, you've got your masterminds that you do, the events that you host and speak at. My question for you is, what is one thing that you used to once dream about, either when you were a kid or when you were in high school or when you first, met and married Tracy, your wife? What's one thing that you used to dream about that's now a reality for you?
Well, so Tracy and I are also investors, and so one of the things that we had started off early on is just accumulating properties and accumulating real estate. And so we always made it a point to live well below our means so that we can leverage. Instead of buying $1 million house, we would buy like a $300,000 house and then use the rest to go buy properties. And so instead of, one of the things that became a reality for us is, we finally bought like a house that was, that I never dreamed that I would be in. And, I look at, like, sometimes so I have this is a weird thing to say, but I'm detached from the house because sometimes I still can't believe that I live there. I feel like I'm not really like this is going to end at any time. I still have that like mentality in the back of my head that is like, yeah, don't get too attached, buddy, you know, because it can all go away. And I don't know that that's a good thing or a bad thing. It's just the truth of it, you know? And so, but it's been really cool to kind of go through that, because not only that, but we didn't like, we were able to, through all of our, you know, real estate dealings, get this house under market and, you know, and really be able to do what we wanted to it. And so that reality of where I'm living is still something that I have to like, oh my gosh, I literally own this place. It's weird to me. But for me, it's like, it's cool because, you know, like from where I grew up, from where I came from, and from what I limited myself for many years thinking, like, it's kind of cool to see that I did that. And I was able to partner with somebody like Tracy, who was equally, you know, growing up in the same type of way, you know, working class family, you know, we just made good decisions early on to help us do that. And so that's one of the things that I'm most proud of.
All right, so this is our rapid fire section. We are
Oh
wrapping
shit, let's
up.
go.
My
I
favorite
know,
part.
let's go. Okay. Childhood dream job. What was it?
I always wanted to work in a record store.
I'm
All
really
right.
surprised by that, but okay,
Yeah,
I
me
love
too.
Yeah, who didn't want to? I mean, to me, like that would
for the
have been the
kids
best
who
job
are
ever.
listening right now, can you answer what is a record?
Yeah, there you go. I still
Yeah,
buy records.
seriously.
Okay. Your go-to lazy dinner when you've just had a day.
Spaghetti.
Ooh, that is comfort food.
I had that last night.
Okay.
So good.
When you're out on a date, sparkling or still water at the table.
So it's sparkling now. So I stopped drinking. I'm not drinking anymore.
Okay.
And so for me, like that's like I drink
Makes you
sparkling
feel like
to
you're
make me
having a
think
little
that I'm
cocktail or
drinking.
something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like a
love
secret.
it.
Like if I go somewhere and I'm like drinking it, I'm like, yeah, like I'm having a drink. But yeah, it's just my way of tricking my brain that I'm drinking and I'm not really drinking.
I love it. Do you put a lime in it? A little, sometimes?
I
No?
do. I do.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
do the lime. The lime's the move.
Yeah.
That's the move.
Okay. What is the best non-curse word? One word insult. Cat likes moron.
Man, that is like.
I know.
Well,
Yeah.
so you said non-curse word? Because I think
It has to be a
everything.
non-curse word and it has to be an insult. So someone on our Tiffany, she said, Tiffany Pantosi said generic. So generic. Like that is so insulting.
I think it's like I've been doing this play on words with a lot of things in my life, where it's like the opposite, but it's genius. Like that's the worst thing you
Oh,
could say to
got
somebody
it.
because it really means the
Genius.
opposite. You know, like
Yeah.
the,
Like,
the polar opposite of whatever they did was not genius, but it was that
right.
was that's
Okay.
that's one that
I like
We
it.
approve of that one.
Yeah. What makes you nervous?
Oh, wait! I'll tell you one. I'll tell you one real quickly that really got
Okay.
me. That hurt me, my soul. That somebody told me. I was like, and I still remember this like it was yesterday. I was a senior in high school, and I had to break up with this girl, and she said, "You know what? You're just a jerk." And I was like, that like was worse than anything that anyone could ever say to
Jerk.
me. And I was like,
Ooh.
it hurt bad. And so I never wanted. So jerk is another one. But all right, sorry, go ahead.
Dang, I don't think I've ever personally used that, but that does feel like it stings. Jerk.
Yeah.
I might try it. Okay. What makes you
Look
nervous?
out, people. Candace is on the move.
What makes me nervous?
Yeah.
I think I get nervous when I'm in situations that I've never been in before. And I've really learned to harness nervousness in a way that I've never done before. Like I get nervous, I don't do it. Right? That used to be my thought process. Now it's like I get nervous, it's now a trigger for me to lean into it harder. And so like if I go speak at something, I'm like dying leading up to it.
Yeah.
And then when I get there, I'm like, boom, let's go. But I
Same.
love that. I love that nervous feeling. And, like I get nervous every time I do a podcast. I was nervous coming into this. Like if it's something that I never done before, there's always a set of nerves, and I just figure out how to harness that and lean into it. But there's a lot of nervousness in my life.
I'm going to assume that Tracy already knows the answer to this question, so I'm just going to ask it anyways. Who's your celebrity crush?
No, we've literally never talked about this.
You've never talked about this? Oh.
Yeah. Well, we did one time.
Dom's is Jessica Alba.
That's yeah, I can see that. I can see that.
That's on brand. That's on brand for Dom. Yeah.
So I would say, so this is okay, because I'm older, right? So when I was younger, it was like Winona Ryder was like,
oh yeah,
and then I think after, like, I think I grew out of that. You know, I'm 47,
yeah.
so like I think I grew out of the celebrity crush thing. I don't know why, but like it stopped there. That was like my last one, and I remember telling Tracy about it. She was like, "Man, that does not at all. Like, I don't care about
track.
that."
Okay.
But
yeah,
I didn't track with her. She was like, "You're an idiot." But yeah. So back then,
you're a jerk.
Yeah, I'm a jerk. Yeah.
My childhood celebrity crush, for anyone listening who's about my age, definitely Benny the Jet Rodriguez. And if you know, you know. No one? Sandlot?
I know.
No, that
PF Flyers?
Yes.
Okay.
Benny the Jet
I do know
Rodriguez.
that.
He
That's
didn't age
funny.
well. I Googled
That's
him.
He was such a cool kid.
So
funny.
cool.
He did not. No, that's okay. We'll maintain him in Sandlot. That'll just be the image.
That's it.
That's
okay.
awesome.
What's your favorite recent purchase?
Let me think that through. All right, so it's kind of recent, but I really splurged on a backpack. Like it's like a Louis Vuitton black on black backpack that like I love, and it's actually become a little bit of my brand because like, you know, I think it's gonna transcend times, like meaning
Oh, absolutely.
it's always gonna be a classic, and I hope that like, you know, that it's like weathered and stuff, and one of my kids picks it up one day and is like, this is cool, you know. But yeah, that, because I try to, if I'm gonna buy something, I want to buy something that's gonna be timeless.
Yes.
And is going to be worth and made well, and so I try to stick with that. But that's it.
I love it. I love a good bag. I'm kind of like, not specifically purses necessarily, but just like, I love a good travel bag. I love bags. All right. I need to know this because Dom and I are always arguing over this. I'm always at the airport, and my arrival time is approximately 2 minutes before boarding time. Are you at 2 hours before boarding time, or 2 minutes getting on a little sweaty and running to the gate kind of thing?
No, so I missed a flight recently, which I've never done, but it's because of this. So I now have access to lounges, and so for me, I want to go in. I want to get there. I clear, then I do the TSA, then I go to the lounge and I chill. Like I just want to chill and not like and do work, and then I mosey my way to the gate. So I'm usually like a 2-hour person, and that's been amazing for me. But I'm going to give you one more travel hack. Yeah. Have a travel outfit. And Ryan Serhant, I saw Ryan Serhant at the San Francisco deal that we talked at. That you spoke at. At the end of it, Ryan Serhant was leaving, and I noticed he changed into like an outfit. Whatever that outfit is, I went and bought like the half-size version of it because I'm about half the size. And I bought that, and that's what I wear because it has changed my life on traveling because it is like having sweatpants and a sweatshirt, and because I'm always cold up in the air.
Yeah.
So I see maniacs wearing flip flops on planes, and I'm like, who are these maniacs? My feet are
my husband, because he is San Diego through and through, so he likes to wear his flip flops freaking everywhere.
It's
But
freezing.
from like a sanitary standpoint, like
I don't get
temperature, yes, but also like your bare toes in the airplane.
Yeah,
Airplanes
gross.
are just like flying petri dishes. Like, why would you ever?
Girl,
Anyway,
I've had this conversation before.
I'll work on him when I see him.
Thank
next.
you.
Oh my goodness.
So I see. I just triggered a cat on this, but yeah. So I like to I have an outfit now. So the travel 2 hours early. Lounge outfit, like the whole thing,
Swooped.
and it's changed my life.
And definitely your breakthrough podcast branding on the t-shirt that goes under that.
I
that's
gotta
coming
do
soon.
that. I haven't done that
Yeah,
yet, but I
do
gotta
it.
do that. That's a good point.
Or
Yes.
like a cap, like a trucker hat or a
There you
dad
go.
cap, like
Yeah,
with the branding
something.
like backwards. Like you could pull off
All
the
right.
backwards hat.
But why would
Rock
he
and
ever
roll.
cover
I'm
that
down.
hair though? I don't know. Gotta
That's
put,
true.
you know.
You do when I'm flying because it just ends up like just getting bigger and bigger.
Everywhere.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Last question. Kat is obsessed with Marvel. I don't understand the comic book world, but she's obsessed. What's your go-to, if you had one superpower, what would your go-to superpower be?
Oh man, I love to read minds. I would love to read
Oh.
minds.
Mm-hmm. All right. I like it.
Yeah, I
So,
love
Love
to
it.
read you
Chris.
guys' minds right now. Like, you know, like, and maybe I don't. Maybe it's like I shouldn't, but I would love to know what my wife's thinking and what people I'm talking to are thinking. It
You
would
don't
just
want to
be
know what she's
amazing,
thinking.
super.
I'm just
You know how they say there's always like a bit of mystery in a healthy long-term relationship? Let's
keep it.
let's keep
Keep
that
it.
mystery under wraps.
Good
Under
point.
wraps. Yeah.
Good
Okay,
point.
Chris, where can the people follow you? What's, tell them about your podcast. Tell them everything that they need to know to get in touch with you.
All right, my handle is Chris Medellin Official on Instagram. Please follow me. And then the podcast, we actually have a podcast Instagram too. It's Breakthrough Pod Official. You can find a link to my podcast, Breakthrough, and the Breakthrough podcast is all about what we talked about today. It's the coming up before the actual breakthrough and those stories that are meant to inspire you to break through that next level. And so, yeah, follow me, check it out. I think it's there to inspire you. And I appreciate you guys having me on because it means a lot to be able to tell you my story and to connect with you guys. And it's always a pleasure being a part of whatever you guys are doing.
Thank you, Chris. The feeling is mutual.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us today. Thanks for joining us on Not Nice, Clever.
Remember to follow Not Nice Clever wherever you listen to audio.
And if you haven't already, drop that 5-star review.
Share your takeaways. Tell us your story. We love to hear it.
Signing off, you're not so nice, but oh so clever besties that mean business.
See you soon.